Commission for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. I will open the meeting at 7:30. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have roll call, please?
All right, Mr. Fitzer? Mr. Harrell?
Here.
Mr. Colbert?
Here.
Mr. Cusero?
Here.
Mr. Nushai?
Here.
Ms. Redmond?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mr. Solomon?
Here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is approval of the agenda, the approval of this agenda that we have in front of us currently. Does anyone have any changes they'd like to make to it or add anything to it? Okay, if it's good, I'll just approve it as that. We do not have to take roll on that. Agenda item number 5 is approval of the regular meeting minutes from April 25, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 25th, 2023.
Support.
Motion, support, any changes? Anybody see anything wrong? Seeing none, I'll take roll call, please.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott? Mr. Solomon?
Yes.
Mr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mr. Cusero?
Yes.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 6 is public discussion, but this is public discussion for items that are not on the agenda. So don't worry, we're going to discuss this thing. I will open it up for public later on at some point, but right now we have to go through our little meeting here first. So if anybody from the public wants to speak about anything that's not on this current agenda, they can come to the microphone at this point. Seeing none, I will close public discussion. Nick, are we going to go with 7, or you want to postpone that, move it?
I think that we'd recommend having the other site plan before, as the applicant is not here.
Right, the applicant's not here for the site plan for 650, so we'll postpone him. We'll move him down to number 8, and we'll move number 8 down to 7. So we'll just wait on that, which moves us on to agenda item number 8, which is review of the site plan for 436 through 456 West 14 Mile Road. I think Mr. Tangeri, want to start us out, or?
Yeah, I'll just go in here. Gonna put up a presentation. Well, I'll do that in a second. So, this was discussed, of course, at the last meeting. Sorry, I was all set to go with 650 North Rochester. Yes, we're talking about these 3 single-family homes on West 14 Mile, right in a row, that are being proposed to be replaced with a multifamily building. 14 units, 25 total rooms. We make a distinction between the number of units and the number of rooms because the number of rooms affects our parking requirements and how the ordinance considers the density of the site, separately from the number of actual units. So those 14 units are broken down as 3 efficiency units, 4 one-bedroom units, and 7 two-bedroom units. As noted last time, there are 2 setback standards in this district. So one of them is a raw number. This is how far the building has to be minimum from the property line. All of those numbers are met by this building. However, there's a second standard, which is a calculated setback, which takes the length and height of the building into account. It's the length of the building plus twice the height of the building divided by 6 is the calculated setback. And on the east side of the building, which is the side closest to the church to the east. The calculated setback is 27 feet, and they're 20 feet off the line, which is the required minimum setback for the district. So they're not meeting that calculated setback. They have stated that they are planning to request a variance from that standard. The other outstanding item that is still not in line with the zoning ordinance requirements is the number of rooms on site. So the site is 24,898 square feet. In order to have 25 rooms, they would need 25,000 square feet, so they need an extra 102 square feet. They have 25 rooms, so they have also indicated the intention to request a variance from that standard. A couple other little things. We don't have a detail of the wall an architectural detail of the wall that's being proposed along the rear property line. So that should be provided. They have given us the location of the wall on the site plan, and they've noted its height, which is that 4.5-foot height that's required in the ordinance. They have updated the landscaping from last time. They've added some more kind of tall arborvitae in between the large evergreens. The parking has also been updated to get enough of the parking spaces on the site that they no longer have a need for unusual things like waivers or deferments of parking. They are still showing those 2 deferred parking spaces on the plan, but they actually don't need to be there. And given that they've got all the parking on the site that is required, those could be removed. For lighting, they've shown a compliant lighting plan. I did note in my review that a house side shield is required for the pole-mounted fixture toward the back of the site. They didn't have a note on the plan saying that they were going to put a house side shield on there, but the fixture that they are proposing, actually look this up, does have an optional house side shield, so they should be ordering that along with the fixture. So I'm trying to just sort of briefly discuss the changes here. The 2 big items there are those 2 variances that they say they're planning to seek. One is for the 102 feet from getting that 25th room, and the other one, or square feet, sorry. And the other one is that calculated east setback. I don't know if you have any questions for me before we turn it over to questioning them.
I do have a question. I know in another part of our ordinance outlines a setback for, it's worded funny, and I guess I can reference like the part I'm speaking to if it's helpful, but that if there's a parking lot proposed that in it abuts a residential, I know it's not zoned residential, but there are residentials there, that there's a 25-foot setback. I'm just wondering if that is something that we should consider in this, seeing as how there's I believe it's a 20-foot setback to the neighbor's home, correct? The residential that would still be existing?
Hang on. The west side setback is 53 feet.
Oh, it's 53.
Yeah. So that 20, they're meeting that 25.
So so the
standard.
setback would be total setback from the building or from the parking lot? And I guess
It'll be from the building.
From the building,
that's from the
okay,
building.
okay.
Yeah. Yep, so they're 53 feet from that west property line.
Okay.
Any other questions for Joe?
I'm trying to open up something on my my internet connection is not cooperating, so I'm trying to buy some time for
I have
myself.
some clarifying questions, but I guess I could wait till they're going to come up next.
Yeah, they'll be
Okay.
up next.
Just
yep.
because I didn't see some of the changes we discussed last time, but I did have some questions on the parking and things like that that I
Yes.
think were addressed. Just want to clarify it.
Okay. Well, Joe, I guess my question was aimed, in your review, the Giffords and Webster review, kind of the spirit of that effort is to just go through our existing ordinances and see where the site plan maybe has some deviations. And one of the concerns I had is, and I didn't see it in the review, so perhaps you can help me, and I'm trying to pull it up my notes here, but my internet connection is failing. But is there a cap on the number of efficiency apartments that can be a part of the apartment plan?
That is a good point, actually. In the RM districts, it's 10%, so they are over that, which would be another variance. Yes, you're correct. I actually have a note on that in my own notes here, because I didn't put it in the
So if they
letter,
had 10
but-
units, they could have one efficiency. If they had 20
Exactly,
units, they
yeah.
could have two.
Yeah,
But as they have 14 units total, really, they could only have, one, right? And I think the
Right,
plan
yeah, they've got
currently-
three,
They
yeah.
have three currently. So that's obviously congruent to the plan that the architect had to maximize their footprint. But I think the spirit of that regulation is to try to drive, and we talked about this at our last planning commission meeting, but is to kind of try to drive more of a family-friendly strategy for real estate development and have, fewer single efficiency apartments. So places where people could raise families or take care of loved ones if they had to. So the ordinance as it was, I think, attempted to drive us in that direction. So that's a variance conversation as it stands.
yeah.
But I just wanted to make that clear that wasn't included in our packet, but that is in fact a deviation from what our ordinance requires.
So even if they get approval from us, they're still going to have 3 items that they have to go in front of the ZBA on?
Any approval granted by this board would have to be contingent on those variances being granted, yeah. Your other option would be to postpone a decision, have them go to the ZBA and come back.
Right, okay.
Joe, with that said, I noticed, wasn't the other one that was prior to this, we've delayed, they went to the ZBA first, is that correct?
The 650 North Rochester did go to the ZBA.
So what
first, yeah.
determines, just in terms of,
There's no
like,
preference.
it's a preference upon the
Yeah,
applicant?
exactly. The applicant, in
Okay.
that case, requested to go to the zoning board of appeals first.
Okay, just
Their
curious.
entire use was dependent on their variance.
Right, okay.
Because there's no more questions for Joe, I'll ask the applicant to address us.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Maybe.
Good to see you all again. So we are back here for consideration. I think Joe did a good job summarizing all the changes, so I don't think I need to run through any of that. Couple of things of note, yes, we do still show the deferred parking, but as Joe said, it would not be needed with the new parking configuration, the 2 spaces that are added there. We've also had the chance to have a connection with the neighbor to the east of us, which is the Fellowship Bible Study, and the representatives are here tonight as well too. And they were amenable to work together for mutual easement to resolve the current outstanding access easement for their property, as well as the site access easement for this property. We also, since the last meeting, I apologize, we did not receive a transmittal copy of the review comments that were dated the 17th and the 18th, so we pulled them up as part of the agenda packet, so today's our first time really getting a glance on some of those and responding to some of those issues. So we apologize for a few items being missing on the plans, which could have been prepared for you guys tonight. The detail, I'm going to run back through just some of those items really quickly. The detail on the wall is going to be a CMU block wall with an 8-inch stone cap on top of it. As discussed in the last meeting, we will have weep holes at the bottom of that wall in events of flooding, in flooding events or high storm events for the neighbors to the north. And, if they need a relief from some of those stormwater events and their grading is pitched all against that wall, that we're not, backtracking all that water. we're allowing a place for it to drain out to through, basically through our detention and stormwater management system.
And what's the height of that wall?
4'6".
4'6".
Raises up at the back of the dumpster enclosure as the dumpster enclosure height requirement is higher, 6 feet.
It's probably 6 foot or so, or?
Yep, I believe so.
I thought the whole fence line was supposed to be 6 foot between commercial and residential.
Between commercial and residential may be, multifamily and residential, my understanding was 4'6"
4'6", okay.
is the minimum height requirement.
All right.
Right. That was one of my clarifying questions from our last meeting.
Yeah.
I thought there was an agreement that you guys were going to change that to a 6-foot wall across the whole, what is that, northern border against residential? I don't know. That's not,
We don't have an objection to that. Yeah, we're
If-
happy to do it. We decided to make it masonry because there's some pushback.
On
And
the
I think the
vinyl.
most relevant point is, we're gonna have a weep hole through that, so anybody who's affected by that, the water will go through.
Well, there's only 2 properties at the
Can we stay at the time and reserve all communication
just a second.
to public comment? Sorry, so we can stay a little more organized to it,
We
too.
will poke a hole through it.
Yep. So if the planning commission wants to make that a condition of their approval, my client has expressed that he's, you know, amenable to that. If the planning commission did so choose, you would be infringing a higher restriction on the property as well, too, from what the ordinance requires, so just want to keep that in mind. But he is amenable if you so felt that needed to be added for the viability of the project.
yeah, that was just a clarifying question. I know the ordinances, you're upholding that with your 4'6", right?
Right.
I just remember the conversation from last week, or last month. I was just going to clarify that. Thank you.
Correct, yep. So part of, as far as other clarification items, the light fixture at the back should have, it's specified with the proper backlight controls and shielding for it, too. It's a corner cutout unit, too. So it shields at the back and it shields from one side as well, too. So L-shaped shielding on that unit. And that's consistent with the photometric modeling that we have there. So we'll make sure if that is not, that it's clearly specified on the construction drawings. Moving on to some of the engineers' comments as well, too. So items 3 was, again, the CMU screen wall. Item 4 in their comment list was with regards to the parking clarification, why the deferment is shown if there's the 2 additional spaces that are already shown
Wait.
in the north end.
So we had the pleasure of meeting the neighbor, the pastor next door, and we're gonna grant an easement because his driveway on the west side is on our property, and it would just be the right thing to do. In addition, we've indicated to the pastor, who's present, by the way, that we would need an easement in his aisleway in the back. There's parking and then an aisleway. And we're in discussions, and it's going pretty good, because it would just be an intelligent way, if there, in the unlikely event there were a fire, obviously, it'd be best to have access on all 4 sides, right? So they would come in from the, on the street to the east.
Side street.
What's the name of that?
Custer.
Custer.
Thank you.
Go west and then poke out, going south. So I think that's just a good thing to do. Obviously, that would give us access and we would meet our parking requirement.
Yep.
Unlikely it'll ever be used, but it does meet the ordinance. Also, I do have copies for you for your own edification. We did do a parking study, if any of you want it.
Sure.
It's kind of interesting, actually.
Before you go too much further, can you speak more about the easement? You're going to come around the back of his building?
Sure, yeah,
So won't that allow residents to use that as a in and out then?
No, not any more than they do now, because it's existed forever.
So,
Well,
if
but
I
there's
could,
not a multifamily there.
yeah, if I could address that really quickly. So the engineer, in part of his review, brought part of this up. The existing conditions right now are a one-way drive aisle around that building. So the drive aisle in the rear of the building is one way from the east to the west. The drive aisle that's encroaching on my client's property, that's coming back out to 14 Mile is one way from the north to the south. So if residents are going to be trying to park in the two spaces as we currently have them shown, they cannot enter from 14 Mile because they would be coming up against a one-way drive where the current traffic condition is wrapping around the building. So as such, they will have to enter for those two parking spaces from Custer in keeping with the traffic pattern of the Fellowship Bible Study. Those two spaces would be signed in explicit as parking spaces for the multifamily residents, and anybody who needs to get in and access to them will have to come in around Custer. So that's what the need for that reciprocation of the easement is. It's not just granting the easement to the adjoining property for their use of that one-way drive aisle, but also allowing, if the parking is added on there, allowing for functionality of that parking. And that's in keeping with the engineer, Mike's comment number 5. That's kind of what he was getting at there, was it would need to come in off of Custer, that traffic.
And so, is there going to be additional signage there for residents? Because there's not a thorough passway at the moment. Of course, it's residential right now. But are you planning to put additional signage so that people aren't
So people
entering-
are not entering behind the multifamily. They're not
exiting
continuing.
onto Custer?
I'm sorry,
exiting.
they don't have the ability to do that.
Well, you see it's a one-way, but if nobody's coming towards you, you can go down the street.
There's
right?
no road connecting the residents' main parking
Oh.
lot
They can't
to
go
that
foot.
area. It's just two
Okay,
dead-end
so
parking
it's-
stalls.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so they
okay.
cannot, I mean, they'd be hopping a curb, some landscaping,
Gotcha.
storm catch
Okay,
basin.
Thank you for that. Okay.
We're gonna
I
have a little bit
understand
more
you.
problems if they're trying to get around there.
There'd be some problems. All right,
I
thank you.
wasn't sure where you were going, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, so that's
that's-
a dead end, yeah,
That's
the,
not open then. That's not a street. Okay.
yeah,
According to what they're saying, it's not open.
No, it's
It
not.
just goes to 2 spots.
to 2 parking spaces.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
right, I
a
see that,
sidewalk.
but it seems even behind those parking spots that there is, maybe that's just,
I
Enough.
think there's a good overview and visual on page 44 of our packet.
on
that-
what page?
Page 44.
44.
That helps solidify this as they're discussing it.
Thank you.
It's a little bit easier to
Thank
see
you.
that landscaping and things that'll block off the
Oh,
two.
Your
yes.
point's well
Parking
taken,
spots.
however,
Mm-hmm.
they'd have to drive through landscaping and it'd be crazy, you know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a valid point, however, not gonna happen.
okay, perfect. I
Yeah.
see it now. Thank you, Josh.
So the only just to clarify, the only traffic shared between the two properties is gonna be the people accessing those 2 parking spaces. Aside from the Bible Fellowship Studies traffic being able to get back out onto 14 Mile, which is normal service currently.
The proposed solution is for the public safety and welfare of the community, because now it's legitimized by these easements.
Yep.
And, what, the setback issue, did we have that addressed, that we could move?
Yes, so one other item that we'd like the planning commission to consider is a potential condition for the evening. The variance request on the side yard setback, 27.5 feet. Currently, if you look back at that landscape plan, the same page number in your packet, you'll see that on the west side of the site, we have about 8 feet of pretty dense landscaping between the multifamily and those single-family residents right there. That landscaping buffer is not currently required by the zoning ordinance. That parking lot can come right up to the property line, which would allow the building to shift that 8 feet over to the west, eliminating the need for the variance on the east side.
However, we think it's a better,
Solution.
yeah, because it's more green. We would respectfully request that in the event this board decided that this was a worthy, noble thing to do, we would like to go for the variance, because I think it's better to have trees. But if they say no, we can just slide it over and just eliminate that.
The need for that
Yeah.
variance.
Does that make sense, what we've just said?
I believe so.
Obviously, our goal would be to obtain the variance because it's a better overall functioning plan. The variance request, again, is based off of a calculated side yard setback. It's not something you see in a lot of places. The setback, the minimum setback, which is the, established one for the districts, is met.
I think a lot of this, when it was originally, the intention was in the old days, you didn't need fire suppression, which made sense, right? There's a fire. However, these buildings today require fire suppression. So it's less pertinent than it used to be, and I'm sure in time that will be addressed. The sheet of paper that I just gave you for your own parking thoughts, if you interpret that, according to the Splice Vanderbrink, there's probably one of the more renowned traffic engineers. They do require, they suggest that we need 18. I'm not suggesting that's good for city here, but it's kind of going in that direction, and we're overparked, although, that doesn't mean we're gonna change the ordinance. But I'm just throwing it at you for your own future discussion, that's all.
Now, when you calculated that setback that you were just referring to about shifting the building over, would you still meet the green space allotage and the impervious surface? Did you take a look at that if you plan to shift your building and cover more?
Yeah, so we wouldn't actually cover any more or less space.
So you'd still have the same amount of green space?
You'd still have the same. It would just shift from the west side over to the east side. So instead of having 20 feet on the east and 8 feet on the west, you would have 28 feet on the east and 0 feet on the west. But you can still lay it out that way. We think that splitting that landscaping up is a better approach, is better, cohesion with the neighborhood. And because you're not, exceeding the established setback or the minimum setback, it seems like a better compromise, for the overall plan. Again, these would be subject to the ZBA.
Correct.
And we're comfortable going to see the ZBA on the variances that we've requested. And I understand that would be, your,
We would require that you do that, yeah.
of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Redmond, to answer one of your earlier questions, one of the reasons why we try to go through the site plan approval process prior to going to the ZBA and have it conditioned upon the variance granting is through the site plan approval process, you're able to flesh the site plan out more and make sure that when you do go to the ZBA, you're going for exactly the variances that you do need. A prime example of that would be Commissioner Harris bringing up of an additional variance tonight. Had we gone to the ZBA and then come back to you folks, we would have essentially had to go back to the ZBA again. So we try not to do that, which is why we like to come planning commission and kind of hatch out the site plan. Once you guys are comfortable with it, move it forward, conditioned upon the variances being granted. Some of the request is to, shift the building is just out of respect for your guys' time. If it's not granted, that there's an established resolution to move the project forward and not have to bring it back in front of you guys one more evening.
Okay, sorry, was that you, Nate?
No, go ahead.
Okay, did you have an agreement put in place with the church?
We're working on it.
Correct.
Okay, because I know that without that agreement, our last meeting, we all didn't feel comfortable moving things forward with, at least my understanding was, without an agreement.
We can make it subject to that, because we're gonna be granting an easement to the church.
Correct.
So,
If the easement is granted between the
Yeah.
two parties, do you need us to come back and let you know that it was granted, or you feel?
Well, the site plan, including your 2 parking spaces, is kind of contingent upon that agreement being in place, right?
Right. Yeah, so-
Most of what we have here is contingent upon that agreement. They benefit, you benefit, I agree, but without documentation of that, it kind of crumbles, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and to that effect, if that were to happen, we'd have to come back with a new plan. So it would be a revision to it. But if it does fulfill, then we wouldn't have to then come back again and say, hey, we now have that agreement. Can we move forward? You already, conditioning on that has to be in place. There's a few of them that are out there, right? You have the agreement with the neighboring property and you have the variances. But given that we've had initial communication with the neighboring property, given that it seems an easement agreement that's reciprocal to both parties, both properties stand to benefit from a correction and, document it and record it so that, his property never has to worry about encumbrances or encroachments on his neighbor. It seems like there's very few obstacles there.
So what stopped you from having that today?
It's just, let me finish.
Yeah.
It's gonna require, obviously, the church is receptive to it, because we're giving something that we would do anyways, even if we didn't need it, because it's just the right thing to do. But we wanted to get clarification and a cursory approval here before we start spending money on easements and attorneys, which we'd have to run it through your attorney. So rather than incur, thousands of dollars of bills, we're just trying to do it logically. So if you approve it, it'll be subject to that, which means that's our incentive to do it, because we don't want to come back.
Correct. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I guess since we're talking about that church line, so is there any alternative to the easement that future-proofs the city from having to deal with a problem should either property, either yours or the church's, change hands or
No,
change?
it'll be recorded permanently. So it runs with the land.
It goes
It's a
with the land.
covenant that runs with the land.
Yep.
Yes.
It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's subject to that, so everybody's aware that the property has been reciprocally given, that easement permanently to the church.
Yeah.
It would take the action of two additional property owners who now own those two properties to record something to negate it.
It's a non-issue to a purchaser. It just, they're not gonna care. It doesn't affect the value, which is the only reason someone would care. And it
Should improve it, actually.
It improves, certainly the church's property values improve because they need it. They can't slice off 10 feet of their church, right?
Right.
It's not practical.
Right. Well, thank you. I don't know what we're calling them. At a Hilton hotel, I think there's these 2 or 3 spaces that are reserved for Diamond members, so maybe that's what we'll call those 2 spaces you've got over there. So the Diamond spaces, let's
Yeah.
talk about the Diamond spaces for a minute.
Sure.
A bit bizarre to have 2, out there.
It is.
And,
I mean, the reality of it is, it's gonna be used for some form of, who knows, bicyclists or something, because it's probably never gonna be used.
yeah, I guess,
not
I
practical.
personally, I hear what you're saying, and I definitely appreciate the study by the consultant. I mean, 14 units, if there's a couple in each one of them, there's certainly going to be cars, and every one of those couples has a car. Yeah, there's not enough parking, right? So we're assuming that the single units and the single efficiencies only have one car, for sure. That's a guarantee. And there really can't be any guests. There can't be a visitor that has a car. They have to bicycle. So the diamond parking is very important for bicyclers, you're right. But I'm also concerned, and I saw it in your plan for the dumpster. A couple of, I guess last week, we had a dumpster back into a car because, the car that was following the dumpster truck didn't realize that the dumpster only had one move after he got the dumpster, and that was to back up. And so there was an exciting day near that dumpster truck. And as I look at this plan, I see how you have those 2 spots in the front of the property that is sort of a turnaround area there. But that's quite a distance away from where the dumpster is positioned, and I'm just genuinely, I've not seen layouts like that before where the dumpster has to translate so far in reverse with predictably, right, pedestrians and traffic and cars that may not know what's going on. So this is new territory for us as a planning commission in the sense that this is a conversion of property. And we're shoehorning in here a very dense populated area into a land plot that didn't normally have that. So there's so many things that are unusual. I just wonder, for the diamond parking spot, is it better served as like a dumpster location instead of those 2 spots, and then try to figure out how to, the dumpster spot is going to be used once a week or twice a week. those 2 parking spots, could be more frequent than that. I think the dumpster for the church is back there currently, somewhere,
Well,
not
it's
far
over to
from
the-
it.
It's over to the east.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's talking about,
Checked
is
out
it back
today.
over here?
No, it's
It's on
further,
the-
yeah, further to the east.
I don't know. I mean, I feel a little bit uncomfortable just like talking about this because like this isn't what we're supposed to do up here. This is the back and forth. Should it be square? Should it be round? Should the radius be this or that? These details are not. But for me personally, I'm uncomfortable approving it because of the safety risk of the dumpster traffic. I think that there's a problem there that could be predictable and maybe resolved a different way. So just wanted to bring this up. And then the other consequential thing of the green space you brought up, we have requirements for the green space because we're so dependent on the green space to absorb the water from heavy rains. And it's, you're near 14 miles, so predictably a lot of that water is going to go onto the street as you have it graded, but not all of it. And you have these underwater detention bins, which, are great. It's also kind of, I would say it's great for Florida where the water never freezes, but a lot of that detention bin is just 2 feet underground. You can't pour a paver or a stairwell into your house, without a 4-foot, concrete foundation here because of the frost line. So these are neat technologies that are sort of sneaking into our plans and our sites that are many often, I would say times, are more good than bad by far. But you sort of have to recognize, and this is messages to the commissioners, right? This is a solution to a problem that really hasn't been stood the test of time so much. And if we get it right, it works great. Nobody's basement floods, nobody's sewer gets overwhelmed. We don't, have a small plug on the 14-mile sewer line that results in all of this water, another, I don't know how many toilets you have offhand, but it's not 3, which it is now. It's like 23 or something. I don't remember. And where does all this poop go? Where does all this water go if the sanitary lines fail, or if the retention, freezes, cracks, silts up, doesn't drain? There's just a lot going on here that is unique because of the density of the housing that's proposed, and it's the spirit of our current ordinance is to try to minimize that density through multiple means, either whether it's green space percentages that are to be protected, or it's the number of parking spaces that are required for apartments, or it's the number of efficiencies that are required in that. All of these things are sort of coming together in the spirit of trying to maintain that balance, maintain that harmony. We're a very small town, landlocked, of course. So anyway, those are my immediate comments. I relinquish the rest of my time, sir.
A lot of that, I think, will be handled by the engineering company. It's their job to make sure that the water comes and the water goes away. That's
I think they're great points.
something for us to look at, but it's really outside of our.
It is, but I think those are great things to
They're-
talk to
they're
DPW. Yeah.
Yeah, they're valuable points. Anyone else have any questions for the?
So with the new information on the efficiency and the density, I know you're kind of put on the spot on that, but do you have any idea of how you might?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
We're gonna request it. in the
As a
event-
variance?
Yes.
Okay.
In the event we get it, great. If not, that'll solve Mr. Harris' respectful position on parking. I would like to point out, in reference to the engineering, it's excruciatingly difficult to get projects approved today. And I'm not saying they overdo it, although those very expensive detention systems they have under the parking lots, very expensive. They
Yeah.
do retain the water, and they do go out at an agricultural rate, and they're below the frost line, because if they weren't, they wouldn't function.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw it 2 feet.
There's a 2-foot minimum requirement. We got almost 4 feet of
Okay,
cover
then I
on it,
reserve
yeah.
it. If it's
Yeah.
below the frost line, fine.
Yeah, and
Sorry, I
it's
didn't
an
catch that.
excellent point, and I've told you that, I mean, we wouldn't, obviously, if we were just going for, anything and everything, we wouldn't propose those trees on the west side, but I really think it's a good thing. I believe in that.
Yeah, we need that separation to the neighbor.
Yeah.
In reference to the trash dumpsters, I do have some experience there. We have the project that I think was a nice addition. We call it Elliott. It has the exact same condition with 30 units. And to date, we haven't had any complaints. Maybe it'll start tomorrow. But we don't have any. And it's a dumpster, and they go in there, they pick it up, dump it. No issues. We do require landscapers to clean it every week. And I told you before, these are legacy property, so we care. And I think that one's worked out great. We have no complaints whatsoever. And these trash companies, that's what they do for a living. I mean, they're used to. I mean, this isn't like they're backing up a mile. I would not want to inconvenience the church by having dumpsters there. It's, not nice to have them going in and out. And this does work. We are willing to raise the fence, masonry, CMU fence. We are willing to take on the water of the neighbors to alleviate an issue that exists. I think it solves things.
Yeah.
In reference to multifamily, I do have some experience in it, 47 years. And I think most of the people that move into multifamily, particularly smaller units, it's like a launching pad to housing. So the people that I've seen move in generally don't have families. And when they move out, if they like the community, they buy houses in the community. That's what I've seen. So it's a kind of an incubation housing, if you will. And I get your point. But I just don't think that we don't have 3-bedroom units. And it's just not, we're not appealing to that market dynamic.
Yeah. I mean, one of the questions that you're going to be asked in the ZBA is essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, but is it an extraordinary, requirement or problem that couldn't be solved any other way, And the elephant in the room at that time will be, well, you could have one less unit, or you could have a 2-bedroom instead of an efficiency, right?
Right. So we'll address that at that time. There's no
Sure.
question about it. And that's a risk that we're willing to take.
Yeah. But I think it's a beautiful construction. You've engineered it, very well. I think that there are numerous contingencies that I can think of that aren't ideal, like, it's not well-suited for people with disabilities, for example, because you don't have access to the second floor necessarily for them, or the number of parking spots for handicap parking is compliant, I think is clear, but is it abundant for more than one person needing it? Probably not, but, as you said, there's a specific market that's going to be checking the box to call you to rent one of these, and it is what it is by design. I don't necessarily think that it's not my choice to make, so.
Yeah, I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
We comply with all the HUD requirements, so we are on top of the ADA, and some of the older places that you have don't have it because it didn't exist. So it's as accessible as it can be. I'd like the land to be free. It's not. And I'd like us to be able to build, 1 unit on it. It's not practical, but we just kind of go with, kind of the current zoning and engineering and do the best we can.
To just add to that too, these properties are zoned multifamily. We're trying. There are some spatial constraints, so I think sometimes having abundance of features and be able to go beyond minimum requirements is sometimes a luxury you don't have with smaller sites. And although it seems like it might, be tight and dense, I think that the overall character of the project is in general line in keeping with the zoning ordinance and the requirements. It's not excessively abundant in some of those. I would say there's some unique characteristics to the way the zoning ordinance is written with respect to some, parking calculations, which are again done off of rooms and not off of number of units, which adversely impacts those calculations. There's several factors in the zoning ordinance which kind of necessitated the presentation of what the proposed project is in a specific direction. key example of that is, we have that turnaround at the front, in front of the building, to facilitate emergency vehicles and service vehicles, right? Previously, we had 2 parking spaces right opposite of those two. Those 2 parking spaces make a lot more sense over there than in the northeast corner where we currently have them. The reason they're not there is because parking is not permitted in the front yard setback, even though it's a front yard building setback. You still have a pretty decent landscape buffer between that parking and the actual curb and back a curb at 14 Mile. There's a substantial distance there. But those nuances in there have a shifting parking around in some unique areas. And overall, the total density requirement calculation, again, we're 102 square feet shy of what's required for the lot dimensions. So, we're, based on that, we're building what the ordinance feels is appropriate for that land, for that zoning district, and the density of there. It's a little bit
It's
tight.
less than what the zoning.
It's a little bit
And-
tight. You're
we know.
less than 10% tight.
We realize that, and instead of giving a little above what our ordinance is, you're asking for variances, to be clear. It sounds to me like you want 4, there's 4 variances that you're gonna go to.
3.
Is there 3 or 4 now? Because I thought
There's 3 variances and then the agreement. There's 4.
3 variances in the agreement. Okay, the easement as well.
It could
I
be-
was counting.
It could be 2, if we shift the building and eliminate the side yard setback.
That's not in front of us, right? So currently, there's 3 and then an agreement.
Correct.
It sounds, in my opinion, like you guys feel like you can make this work. In terms of density, I know you spoke about density, but when I spoke of it, I was referring to Nate's point about the efficiency. It's double. You guys are double what the ordinance is asking for. In just my opinion, I thought that at least I and the rest of the commissioners felt very strongly about having an agreement, put in place prior to us moving it forward with conditions. That's just my take on things. I know that you've invested already a lot of money and time into this, and you do sound positive about your ability to make these small variances work, so I'm sure you'd be confident in taking your time and money to invest in those easements. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I felt the same way. I guess disappointed is not the right word, but I half expected to come back here or to see the packet with a few less efficiencies that solved multiple problems simultaneously, right? But you didn't do that. And you didn't have to. And ZBA may approve it, and you'll be glad you didn't, because you could have got all that revenue for free. So
Well, they only approve it when we approve it.
right.
Yep,
Well, they can go to ZBA first, I think.
they could.
Yeah. So
They could, but they discuss it, they're not about to do that, because
I would think not, but I don't know. I don't know. So I feel good, though, that these 2 conversations, these 2 site plan reviews, I feel are bearing some fruit. I think there are minor changes. I'm having my driveway poured right now, and, we're moving millimeters here, millimeters there, trying to get things, as functional as they can be, and a little bit of correcting is helpful. So I don't know if that's what's happening here or not, but I appreciate the back and forth dialogue, and I certainly appreciate the support the city's been putting into it. I know you're working hard with Giffords and Webster and Nick, so.
Would you feel more comfortable if we had the neighbors agreement?
Yeah, definitely. Again, and that's another thing that I kind of wanted to have in writing just done, like the easement, here it is. It's a done deal. There's no confusion about that property line. It's crystal clear. Maybe you just sell that whole property as a parcel. I don't know. Just make it very clear so that that church has a clear path forward that they are agreeing to and comfortable. And you kept using the phrase, it's just the right thing to do. It is just the right thing to do. They need that aisle to facilitate traffic for Sunday worship, and you need that land to consider part of your setback. So it's a little bit of a dual purpose that I don't think was how the ordinances were expecting things to go originally, but it happens to solve two problems on paper at the same time, so I get it.
So let's table it.
You sure?
Yeah, I mean, you don't seem comfortable with it yet, so.
I don't speak for every commissioner, though.
Well, and I would, before we table it, and I agree, and maybe you can come back and address some of the efficiencies that Nate brought up as well, but I still would like to give, if Chair is willing, anyone who wanted to speak in the public an opportunity to prior to
Oh, definitely,
fully
yes,
chairing it.
yeah.
Or tabling it, chairing it.
We would actually postpone rather than table, correct?
Yeah, I
So we
think
just
so.
postpone
Yep.
until you come back again. Okay, if there's no more further questions for the applicants, I would ask one of you to stay here, and I'd open up for public discussion, and maybe you could answer their questions. But please, if you're public, please come to the microphone, give us your name, your address.
Do we need to vote for public comment as an agenda item, or is that okay for now?
No, I have the right to do
You
it.
can open the public.
I can-
Okay.
Hi, my name is Karen. I live right behind the church. Where's the overflow parking gonna be? Most people have 2 cars. Even a one-bedroom apartment, most people have 2 cars. You're allowing 1 spot per apartment. So where are they gonna park? Where's guests gonna park? Is it anywhere in the plan? Because it's gonna be an expressway behind the church otherwise, or they're gonna be parking in the church.
Yeah. I mean, we brought this up, I think, internally before this was even a thing. And the plan of record at the moment is the street. And
Which is our street.
And we deliberately don't want that, right?
Right.
We, even with the provision that you can't park overnight, you're setting yourself up for failure if you have a lot of people who don't know that law maybe, and are visitors to the city, or visitors to that apartment complex, or whatever the case may be, you know, and now they're there, and now the plows can't get through. And I talked to a lot of people who, when they first moved to the city, they hate the no overnight parking policy until they fall in love with it later from living here.
Well, we have a car that parks across the street from us, and I think they support the police department, so. Seriously, she gets a ticket almost every day.
And can I say, I do believe that, you know, the builders think that we have too strict of a parking ordinance in terms of multifamily, but I think we look to try to cushion that. And that's one of the things that when we spoke about lessening our parking requirements for especially multifamily is that we don't have overnight parking, so that overflow doesn't go into a neighborhood. That's just something, so I feel like when we think about how many, you know, parking spots per unit or per bedroom we're allowing, we try to keep a cushion in there for that overflow, keeping in mind there's an ebb and flow to the traffic that's there. There's no precise number, I don't think, that you can say for every apartment they're gonna have 1 guest once a week, right? So there's not a perfect way to do that, but I do think that there's a cushion there that's supposed to help provide for
But
that.
there is no cushion in this plan. You're having 14 units and 23 parking spots. That doesn't even allow 2 cars per house.
And if
But
two
there's not,
adults, yeah.
there's not 2-bedroom units.
Even a single 1-bedroom, if you have a couple, they're gonna
Yeah.
have 2 cars,
Yeah.
generally. There's just me and my husband, and we have 2 cars. So, and if anybody comes over, where are they gonna park? Right in
Well-
front of our house.
It just doesn't
You've
address
asked the
that.
question, I don't know how else to answer it other than to tell you, there is no plan for it. There is
Right.
no
Well, that's what I'm
accommodation for
saying.
visitors.
That's what we're worried about,
And
you
if every
know.
single bedroom has 2 people living in it with 2 cars, it's a busted plan.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, but.
2
the
cars home
odds-
at the same time,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
right.
Well, at night, generally, that's what's gonna happen. Yeah, night, weekends and stuff. The church has services on Friday and Sunday, and so their parking lot's gonna be full, so where's it gonna go?
Yeah, maybe the church parking parishioners have to find a new place to park, I don't know. I think that you're valid, you know, I hear your point.
Right.
And, you know, I'll just add to that, you know, people park in front of my street all the time. And it's comforting to know that when I look out my window and I see the car that I recognize, that's Jim's car, you know, or that's Jim's wife's car, or whatever. And-
Right.
But when it's a new car that I don't know, I wonder, who is that person? Are they peaceful people or are they not peaceful people? And if I don't know them, like, it's a tax. It took a little bit out of my day, so.
Well, Custer's a narrow street too, so if they're parking on both sides, emergency vehicles are not gonna be able to get through.
So anyway, thank you for vocalizing that.
So that's a big concern. Like I said, we live right behind the church, and I don't want an expressway going through the church parking lot. And
So
I'm sure
currently
they
our,
don't either.
our ordinance doesn't require them to have an overflow. It just is based on the
Yeah,
units.
that's a
But
good
even
way.
the units, there's not enough
Yeah.
people for that. Not enough space for what they're providing.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how the church feels about letting them park in their spots. That's up to them.
Hi, I'm Peggy, and I'm on Broadacre. I am the center house of the three. Yeah, okay. So the parking is a concern, but of course, again, my biggest concern is the wall. They're talking 4.5 feet. There is currently an existing wall on the east of me that, I don't know how tall it is, but 6 feet? It is 6 feet, and I think they should keep the aesthetics evenly and do at least the 6-foot wall all the way across.
That would be between us and behind Ed's house.
Yeah, so that's only
we-
2 properties that they gotta add a 6-foot wall, because they said last time they were leaving the existing wall. So why don't they just keep it the same height instead of drop down? Because 4.5 feet, literally, I can wave over it.
In our discussion earlier, I thought that it was 6 foot was a mandatory fence, and it's not. It's 4 foot 6
And
is
it probably
mandatory.
should be, if you need some help,
But
I'll
I
help
don't
you.
think they have any problem with going with the 6-foot fence.
That's
They-
our only request is a 6-foot wall.
I think that,
Everything else works good for us.
I think that can be
Besides, we
accomplished.
don't have to fight out their parking issue.
I appreciate they're adding more green, I do appreciate that.
I think that's a good
I am
touch, yeah.
concerned about the traffic, with the U-Haul trucks constantly in and out, the moving trucks and all that, but, I mean, besides the noise, I guess it's not my problem. But, yeah, the wall, I am begging you to make that. They're asking for plenty of variances, so we can just add that to the fact that, you know, you gotta give and take.
Aesthetics all the
They
same.
agreed that
Yeah,
the
and-
6-foot wall, I think. So-
And if
Okay,
you
well, when
guys
they
can have it on
agree-
the next plan, that'd be great too, so that we just know that you're planning to do it.
Stipulated, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because when they were talking about doing 6 feet, last time it was vinyl fencing. That
No,
can't
it's not gonna
happen.
go vinyl, no.
And they were talking about holes under it. I'm not sure the purpose of that, but
For your
It's
drainage,
for
they
your
were
site.
saying.
I don't have a problem, so I don't
Yeah.
understand it, so. Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you.
That's half the church's property.
Anyone else from,
Anybody else?
anyone else from the public?
I think they all have
Yeah.
the same issues.
Just between us and Mike here, that's where we don't have a wall. So the existing, we want it the same height.
Yeah, I think we can accomplish that, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We're good.
We want to be in peace. I'm the pastor of the church.
Oh.
We want to be in peace with everybody, with the builder, with the neighbors. And for the neighbors, I want you to have peace concerning that parking lot. Nobody's gonna,
Could you come to the microphone, please? So the people at home can't hear you.
so,
Just introduce yourself also, if you don't mind.
my name is Ata Mikhail. So, we have a parking lot. They're concerned about, I mean, the north side parking lot. They're concerned about people using it to go into the apartment. So I can guarantee you, we have a gate. We're gonna close it, and nobody is gonna pass through this gate except when we have meetings. We open it. Okay. So, but we want also the builder to be in peace. So I want, the alley is a vital thing for us. We need that easement, and we'll give him the easement that he needs. Yeah.
Can I step up? Hey, guys, so real quick, the alarm that just went off was for the fire department. There's a smell of natural gas. So at City Hall, so we're going to clear the building.
In this building?
So, Chair, if you could just make a motion to recess the meeting real quick.
I
And
make a
everyone can
motion that we
please
recess
exit.
until we get a free call back.
Just say you're due to emergency situation, so we're good to go.
We're going to pause for a while.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt.
Smoke break.
Don't smoke. You can't smoke, you'll blow up.
outside, have a cigar.
We're on our way out. Better be safe.
Find out.
I trust him.
You just gotta give it a nice push.
I was already getting
All right, well,
damage.
yeah.
Discussion, and I think we pretty much battered that around. Does anyone else have anything to,
Let the pastor.
Pastor was, yes, explain something, yes. If you'd like to continue.
Yes, as I said, we want to be in peace with everybody, with the builder, with our neighbors. And our neighbors' main concern was that the tenant will use the parking lot, the northern parking lot, to go into the apartment building. I can guarantee you that it's not going to happen because we have a gate already there, and it's going to be locked and open only when we have the meetings, okay? So this is number one. But the alley is very vital for us. We need that easement from the builder, and we need to give him that easement also. He give us the easement we need also, or he need. And the two parking spot that the tenant would need, we have the south parking, they can park there. It's on 14 Mile Road, so they can take two spots, and I don't have a problem with this.
Okay.
Yeah, to make it easy on everybody, yeah.
It sounds like you,
Huh?
it sounds like you're both you're in agreement over this, just that we would like to see that formalized, I believe.
Yeah, I'm ready to sign it with them, and yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in public?
Hi, my name's Mike. I live at 423 Broadacre. And I have a question about this proposed drain thing they're going to put through the wall, which is my neighbor and the next neighbor. Whose grade is higher, the proposed building or my neighbor's? Because if right now, my property and Oscar's property is downhill. And when it rains hard, my yard is 40 feet wide. I've had 100 foot deep by 40 feet wide, a foot deep. I call it Lake Broadacre. I can show you pictures of it. So I'm just a little concerned about whose grade is higher and which way that water's going to flow if you put this drain in. Now, if their property, the building, is lower and it's going to flow out, then I would like to see the drains put in at Alex's property, and then my neighbors, Sean and Stacy, they're not here, because if you drain that water away, it wouldn't come downhill and hit us. Because if, it's going to really mess us up if it reverse flows and there's more water. What guarantee do I have of that?
And believe you were here at our last meeting.
I was. And the other point I would like to make.
What was brought up at that meeting, and I asked specifically of the builder that once he puts his building up, he puts his walls up and everything else, that no additional water from his property will go to yours.
How do I know that?
You might still end up having the same water problems that you have now currently.
I mean,
If they put the hole in the wall.
but it depends on the grade. Whose property is higher? My neighbor's or this proposed building site?
Right, we'll have to discuss that.
Water goes downhill.
Right.
And then the other point I want to make, and I said this at the last meeting, when you propose a project like this and it's maxed out at every aspect, just barely meeting the guidelines, and in some points it doesn't, is that a good thing? What kind of effect does this have on our quality of life is what I want to know. And this has been called a multifamily building, but the man that's building it even said families aren't going to be moving in here, so how do I know who's coming and going and moving in and out? So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from public wishing to opine? Seeing none, I will then close public discussion. And I would entertain a motion at this point in time.
So close the public hearing?
No, I closed public.
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean a motion to,
Someone here will make a motion as to approve, disapprove, postpone.
yeah, I would make I'll make a motion to postpone the approval of this due to proposed changes and need for information. I guess I didn't have to give an explanation.
I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any further discussion on it?
Well, do we have to give a date? on
It
that.
would be up to them. We postpone, it's up to them when they want to come
Okay.
back to us.
I think it would be constructive for the purposes of this motion, if we're discussing this motion, just to add a few specifics to what content we're looking for in there.
I think they got that out of the discussion this evening.
Yeah.
I would put it in the motion.
Yeah.
The agreement,
Okay,
Well, it's the three items you had on the screen earlier, right, Joe?
Well, those are the variances.
Yeah, so the three variances. of
Those are
course,
required.
hanging out there. But as far as what you want them to come back with, be highly specific about what they need to return with.
So you're going to add to your motion?
so do you want me to reform it or just, we're going to amend it?
I propose some discussion here because this
Can
is
we-
is a lot. This,
Yep.
I think we need to get this right, if you guys are in agreement. Okay.
sure.
I'm just going to spitball things that I heard and tell me if they were on point or not. We
Well,
talked,
are you going to be adding bullet points to her motion?
We will after discussion, right?
Postpone?
Yeah.
yeah, I'm taking, is that okay?
Sure. Let's try to keep it short.
We're still in discussion though, right? Of those
We haven't
things.
voted yet. We have a motion, we have support. We're just tweaking the motion right now.
Right.
You're not making a motion to amend the motion, you're just opening discussion.
I'd say this is an offer of a friendly amendment to the motion.
He wants to add.
And he's going to throw out some points, and the maker of the motion will either agree or disagree to add them to the motion.
Right. You may do so.
Okay. The wall. It was, you know everything about me now. Build the wall. Okay. I think we've been talking about a 6-foot and a structure made out of masonry, not
Correct.
not something else. So I think that part of it should be specified in the plan. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And it should be noted that you can refuse all of this, right? We're just
Yeah.
just to make it clear. So that was one for me. The drainage, my concern with the drainage is that when we typically have AEW or whoever doing the site plan reviews, typically that property line is the area of focus. So, you know, someone asked, I don't recall their name, I'm sorry, but the grade difference between their houses and the grade of the property, you know, if it's lower, the water, you know, could potentially go the other way. So I don't know how we would know that at this point, just because the surveying isn't including that property. And I don't even know if AEW is obligated to review it in that sense.
Would you like a response on that? Because we do, so our grading plan, we do have their like property line grades, and the the grading plan would be to lower a ditch. We've got, if you look at C4.0, we've got a ditch or swale at the back there that's lower than the existing property line grades. Would be collecting the water from the property line, draining it into that swale
Okay.
and over to the catch basin. So it is lower, and I can mention that to one of the residents as well at the back too. So, and to her point, she said what that would end up doing is that the houses that are immediately behind it, currently what the issue is, those houses currently drain down to the east towards her property. And if there was escape points and holes in that wall, then some of that water could potentially, in flooding events, come south into this property as opposed to flooding theirs. Now, again, that's just based off of the few contours. You know, we don't have a lot of topo deep into the backyards to see if there are other grading or drainage issues, but
Sure.
as far as it reflects from the wall's relationship with those property lines, we're lower.
Would you like to see more detail on that?
It would be cool to have just a mock-up scaling, and it wouldn't have to be sophisticated, but.
And we're happy to do all that. And, you know, the understanding is that it's a little bit of a give and take, because we're not required to do that.
Yep.
However, you know, we would ask this board to give us a little bit of leeway to go get the ability to go get that done, and then we're happy to concede.
Oh, nothing
Right?
prohibiting that.
Just being laying the cards out.
What, I'm not sure what you're asking for, I guess.
He said
The
he-
ability to do that? You need permission from us to do that?
No.
Oh,
I don't.
oh, okay.
He's asking for us to be reasonable.
Exactly.
Okay.
Without
Because
asking
we're
us to
willing
be
to do
reasonable.
things to alleviate an issue that's not.
Excuse me, I have a reasonable request. This is debate for us now, not a question and answer. So please, can we debate between us? We have a motion on the table.
Can we what?
We have a motion on the table. We cannot just keep talking about it with the applicant. This is a discussion between us now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we would like to have some specificity on the drain plan for the neighboring properties. So just some basic detail on where are these, I guess, I'll call them drain tiles or culverts or whatever, that are providing an efficient means for accumulated water that previously would have the chance to maybe absorb into the soil around it, but now don't because there's concrete or pavement going to be there. So so some specificity in the site plans for that. I also brought up, the concerns with the dumpster. So many things revolve around these two spots in the front that are turnarounds that can't be used for parking spots, even though if I was a visitor, if I was a pizza delivery guy, I mean, that's where I'm going. I'm going to be there.
Every time.
Every time. And
Or an Amazon driver.
yeah, I mean,
Well, they park on
100%.
14.
So, yeah.
That's what it's intended for.
We've been through quite a bit of this discussion on this. Like the wall, instead of a 4-foot 6 wall, they're agreeing to a 6-foot wall.
Yeah. It just wasn't
They will
exactly the
give us
plan.
more details on this weeping system. They guaranteed water's not coming from their property to the houses. If anything, water will come from the houses to their property. There are 3 stipulations that we had on the screen earlier that you have to get from the ZBA, your variances. So those should be added to your motion.
I didn't know that we were going to ask them to go to the ZBA first, but I think we're kind of going all over.
Yeah.
The
The agreement is the other big
Agreement is-
one.
yeah.
So just make sure that's included.
The what one?
You guys asked for the agreement.
Yes,
had-
that was what I was gonna say. Before
would
coming
be
back
key.
to us and ultimately going to the ZBA, I thought we were gonna narrow down the few things that we were looking for in terms of the wall, looking and seeing that on the plan, having the agreement in place, and then, I don't know where we're at on the efficiency. That wasn't something that was fully, are we gonna let them go ahead with the seeking a variance from the DBA, or is that something that we want to see that on the next plan
it's up to
addressed,
them.
at least in a way where it's not twice as much?
Yeah.
I would say the more that you can do that, the better I'll feel about it, but I'm speaking for myself. Those are the only things I thought that we were gonna kind of,
Yeah, I don't want to do undue effort, and, I mean, they addressed a lot of our concerns, and they
Right.
did spend a lot of time with us. I don't know if they can do anything else for dumpsters and things like that. I mean, if they want to reconfigure the plan, that is their prerogative, but we can't.
It's not
ask
required,
them
right.
To do that, yeah.
Related to an ordinance.
Right.
correct.
So I think for this board to be confident, you had mentioned the wall being brought to 6 feet, the agreement, and was there anything else I missed?
Just the efficiencies,
Yeah. Okay.
the efficiency unit,
The
which is
agreement
twice
is
as much.
the easement, right?
Correct.
That's,
yeah,
that's
right.
the one that we said we'd feel more confident if that was in writing,
Yeah.
so.
Can I ask a clarification question to you on that? Would
Ron,
you,
is that okay?
We're back at Q&A now.
just as to what
You
she'd
can
like
ask the
to
chair.
see from that, as she's making the motion, would a letter of intent signed by both parties be a sufficient
believe
step
so.
towards that agreement, as that way that would prevent both parties from having to get attorneys and legal counsel involved? Letter of intent,
Letter of intent, I don't know. Look, I'm not an attorney, okay? But
correct.
yeah, like, I don't think a letter of intent is a legal standing though either.
No, that's
It's
why,
just an
Just the
intent.
easement.
Maybe you don't own the property yet, I don't know, but like, we would like to see
Get an
that.
easement.
If approval is conditioned on the agreement, the letter of intent is perfectly adequate.
Okay.
To show that the parties are talking to each other.
Okay,
Okay, is our motion close enough here? We have a motion to postpone with a couple additions that you've added to it, but minor additions, I think.
should we have Nick read
Is
that
that
back?
I'll restate it.
Is that clear enough? I think we've all on the same page here. I think we all understand where we're at.
So right now I have the motion as the site plan for 436 through 456 West 14 Mile be postponed to have the following addressed. The height requirement of the wall on the north end of the property, the easement agreement between the Middle Eastern Bible Fellowship and the applicant, and then the efficiency unit count. The other one that was discussed between the commission had to do with the drainage and grading. Did you guys want that as part of this motion or no?
I don't think that's something we can formally require, but it's up.
It's a request. I don't think it's really a
Yeah, none of it's
requirement.
formal, that
Okay.
they have to do anything, right? I mean, this is,
They don't have to do that.
you want to include that as a topic of consideration? Maybe.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they want to
So
include it for
include
next
the
time,
drainage.
Yeah.
So there should be 4 bullet points.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
let's just say that, and, yeah, that'll get us.
It's your motion. Are you happy with that?
Oh, sorry, Aaron, I did not mean.
No, that's okay. I mean, I can still vote no if I wanted to, but like, no,
Don't
that's,
do
I
that. Don't do
mean,
that. Okay, you made the motion. Mr. Hara, support. You still support?
I still support it, yes.
Okay, at this point in time, I'll take roll call, please.
All right, Mr. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Solomon,
Yes.
Mr. Harrell,
Yes.
Mr. Colburn,
Yes.
Mr. Kucera,
Yes.
Mr. Nushai,
Yes.
Ms. Redmond.
yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, everyone. At this point, can we go back to agenda item number 7? Do we have the applicant here?
That's the small heart there.
Hold that thought.
We good, Nick? All right. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, agenda item number 7 is a review of a site plan for 650 North Rochester Road.
All right, so this will be a familiar site to a few of you who have been on the planning commission for a couple of years. So 650 North Rochester is in our I-1 industrial district over on North Rochester Road. It's been a number of auto-type businesses over the years, a repair garage, a tire shop for a while. It hasn't been anything for several years now. It's kind of sat. We did have a plan in, I guess that was like a year ago, beginning a little before that, to do some medical marijuana primary caregiver condominium type thing in this building. That never happened. They did not execute that plan. Another group has come in and they would like to do a collision shop there. So one of the standards in our ordinance is that a collision shop has to have a separation distance from residential zoning. They did go to the Zoning Board of Appeals already for variance from that standard, and that variance was granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals. That was in February. So that standard is hinted at in the letter, but it's not, they're not non-compliant with it because they got a variance. This is a 0.66 acre site, about 28, or a little south of 29,000 square feet. As I said, it is zoned I-1. There's a building there. It's 7,154 square feet, and there are 2 small second stories that are about 2,500 square feet all told. One's at the front and one's at the back. And then in the middle of the building's 1 story. They're not proposing to change the footprint or the shape of the building. Look at the zoning in the area. There's industrial to the north and the west across Rochester Road. To the east, there's R2 single-family zoning, and then to the south, you have another I-1 site, and then also some R2 with houses to the south. It's kind of halfway down the site. It switches from industrial to residential. So they're proposing changes to the facade, very minor changes to the floor plan, and then they're planning to seal and paint the parking lot. The setbacks of the building are existing. They're not proposing to change any of that. There are some existing nonconformities. Those are permitted to continue until modification. So if they're putting a new building here, they'd have to meet the setbacks, but they have a nonconformity that's they're able to carry forward. They're providing 17 parking spaces. Based on the service stall requirement that we have in our ordinance, they need 10, so they're a little over. I noted that there's an inconsistency between the architectural rendering, the 3D drawing, and the actual elevations in the plan. There's 5 the elevations are the controlling document here. The renderings are for illustrative purposes. So if they actually are going to have 6 bays, they have to change their elevations to show that. But it appears that they're going with 5. They have not identified a loading area on the plan either. Space is available on site for that in a couple of locations. They do need to identify it on the plan, though, to be in compliance with the ordinance. They have a dumpster enclosure in the back. It needs gates. They're proposing new gates. Building materials. So they're proposing to add a few little awnings, paint the existing CMU block, and then they are going to replace the ephes on the ground floor, that front portion of the building, with pre-finished panels. I am asking for them to specify the material of those panels. It looks like a metal, but I could not be sure from the plans because the material was not listed. The color renderings indicate a gray color with orange accent lines. And for that remaining upper floor ephes, which is to be painted, and the CMU that comprises most of the building's exterior. There is a required screening wall in place along the eastern and southern property lines. There is a portion of that wall that's leaning and split that's required to be repaired. The entire wall is going to be repainted. They did not include a note about that repair of the wall on their plans. They are going to have to add that. There is an existing fence and gate behind the building that currently includes some prohibited barbed wire. That is required to be removed, so we need a note on the plan about that as well.
Could you touch on that, Joe? I don't, because it's not familiar to me. Like, what's the barbed wire policy?
Our ordinance has a straight prohibition on barbed wire and razor wire and other such.
Anywhere in the city?
Anywhere in the city,
Okay.
yeah. Yep. The site has, as you're aware, minimal landscaping. They did not provide a landscape plan. They have a label on the plan that shows replacing the existing plantings at the building's base with decorative grasses. During the last site plan application for this site, we did note that 2 frontage trees are required, and dead and dying material has to be removed and cleaned up, and new trees planted. The area south of the building also should be cleaned up and mulched with a weed mat. That is something that they haven't shown us, so we do need a landscape plan to illustrate that with species and showing us what's coming in, what's going out, and where. The existing non-conforming pole sign is required to be removed as well. I did not see that note. And then there was no information about lighting, so if lighting is proposed, of course, we would need a photometric plan, but I'll let them speak to whether or not they're planning on any exterior lighting. If they are, obviously, a plan will be required, but they've not shown any new exterior lighting at the moment.
Joe, wouldn't we require that?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's kind of up to them how they want to light the site, but they haven't shown any at the moment. They are proposing to maintain the existing sidewalks along Rochester Road. The parking lot's accessed from North Rochester, and it's got that kind of kooky arrangement where the property to the north is also accessed from North Rochester by the same opening in the curb. There is an easement agreement on file in the Building and Planning Department for that. We have it on file from the last time this site was in front of us. And that, of course, is still in effect. We do have those standards for auto repair garages. There's that 200-foot separation standard from a residentially or commercially zoned district, residentially or commercially. So that site doesn't really exist in Clawson. So the Zoning Board of Appeals did grant a variance from that standard. believe that was at the April 20th meeting. The ordinance requires that the entire lot, excluding areas occupied by landscaping and building, be hard surfaced for this use. And that standard is met. It's a paved out lot. And then the storage, sale, or rental of new or used cars, trucks, trailers, and or other vehicles on the premises is prohibited. They're not proposing to engage in those activities, but they should be aware that that's prohibited, and they can't shift gears in the middle, in midstream sometime in the future and start doing that. I've included your standards for granting special land use approval, so it's kind of looking at the site and the area around it and deciding whether or not these standards are met based on what's being proposed. They deal with kind of the location, scale, and intensity relative to adjacent uses. I won't read them all because you can read and they're there, but if we want to talk about any of them specifically, please bring that up in our discussion, either with me or with each other, or with the applicant. The other agencies, are fine with the plan. And then engineering did recommend inspection of the drainage system. You can see their letter for details. That basically involves putting a camera down into the drain to make sure no part of it's collapsed or obstructed or anything like that. I think the applicant has already done some of that work as well, but I'll let them speak to that. Any questions for me before we go to the applicant?
It's a requirement for the landscaping plan on the site plan review checklist?
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, the garbage is not on the other property, right? There's
No,
just an
it's on
easement.
their property,
It
yeah.
kind of junks
Yeah,
over
their
a little bit.
property jogs up and goes behind the property to the north of
I
them, yeah.
thought I remembered that. And then I thought I remembered also, did we discuss screening, like roof screening prior to on that one? Does it have,
Yeah, that is required. Any units on the roof need to be screened, yeah.
is that something that we know that they're addressing already?
I believe the second story in the rear building does actually do that at present, but we can discuss that with them if they're putting any new units on the roof or anything like that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Joe? Would the applicant like to address us?
As far as the landscaping goes, that's up to my wife. She's already looked at the renderings and said the orange stripe is out. She doesn't like it, looks like Target, so that's gonna be a change. I'm just trying to think of the screening for the HVAC units. You're saying we have to put something? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're, I thought I recalled them being visible.
Yeah.
There is a screening
Yeah,
ordinance
the
for
rear
that.
one is visible, the upper, or the front one, I don't think is real.
is not.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we will take care of that. And then the landscaping, we're gonna tear out the grass island, take down the pylon sign, just replace it with lawn, and then we're either gonna do, my wife is handling the landscaping, so we'll do decorative grasses up by the building or some type of a short shrub, but we're taking everything out, all the bushes that are there. I'm not sure if the tree by the road if that's actually on our property or if it's on Gill's. Did you say something about that needed to come down, or?
Well, there's one that's definitely on the property. The one, the kind of like bushy thing here
Yeah.
next to the pole, I think is on Gill's property. But
No, Gills is Northwood Collision?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe, I think you mentioned something about two trees need to be in their
Based on
plan?
the amount of frontage, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's supposed to be two There, at one point in that landscaping bed in the front of the building, there were 2 trees. They never made it very far.
They planted them?
That was a previous owner
Okay.
planted those.
Kimberly
yeah.
Tire had trees there at one point? or-
At one point, yeah.
Okay.
They, moment of silence for those trees. They were never really given much of a chance.
Oh, okay.
And they never got very big, but those need to be replaced with viable trees.
And it's a minimum of 2, or?
Minimum of 2, yeah.
Okay. And I'm not sure if we can do some sort of fencing along the south lot line there.
A portion of it, yes. You can't come within a certain distance of the sidewalk, but you could.
Okay, just because there's cars right there.
But we would need that to be added to the
Yeah.
site plan.
Yep, yeah, we'll do that with the,
And can you speak to the type of material you're going to replace the EFS with?
it's either gonna be metal or polycarbonate.
Okay.
So it's a fluted metal or a fluted, or corrugated, like a polycarb. That decision hasn't been made, but, you know, I know we have to go at least 10 feet
Right.
from the
Yeah.
ground up, so.
And we found that metal's on our list, right?
It'll work.
It's- Oh, I didn't even know if polycarb was acceptable or not, if we went that route. I mean, we'll go with whatever's already.
Yeah, the polycarbonate is substantially similar in terms of durability to the metal, so I
It's a
wouldn't,
plastic, but
I wouldn't
it's
have an
like-
objection to it.
Okay.
Bulletproof. Weatherproof.
Okay, the existing non-conforming pole sign is required to be removed. You have plans for that? You have a new sign picked out or
Yeah,
designed?
I didn't know if they were privy to the renderings, but we're doing HDU letters, and it'll be ground lit. We'll do a spotlight to light up the sign. It'll be in the upper left-hand corner of the face of the building.
Yeah, they'll
and-
be applying for their sign permit outside of.
Separately, okay. The lighting, if new lighting is proposed, a photometric plan is required. Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, I'm a sign guy. That's what I do for a living.
No, I'm talking parking lot lighting outside.
Oh, yeah,
Building
there's
lighting.
some security lights there now, but we're gonna put new LED lighting in,
Okay.
inside and out. We have to watch how we light the back because of the homes that are right there. So I don't know if that's a requirement. I mean, I'd like to have lighting everywhere, but I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be obtrusive to the neighbors. There's a couple of houses that their backyards butt up to the,
We do have ordinance that kind of talk about
Okay.
all that fun stuff.
okay.
Can you speak at all? Did you work on the basins? I know that was a concern. Again, I hate to keep putting the last applicant on you, but I'm just recalling that. The basin, the catch basin from the water.
Yeah, we're replacing those with cement. We're redoing we're having those redone.
Oh, you are?
A concrete surround and all, yeah.
So they did confirm that there were issues already there with those?
One actually drains fine, but it,
Oh.
you know, it needs to be done right.
Yeah.
We need to do it. And of course, the one that's between our neighbor to the north, that's above grade now. So, yeah, we're having that lowered and having new surrounds put in.
Perfect. And then the repair of the wall was the other item that we.
Yeah, but we're having a company come out and look to see if it can be straightened up or what we can do. You know, we may have to cut a section out, and even though they're actually preformed slabs that go together, so if we can find the company that does that, we may have to cut some of that out, but we're gonna address it for sure.
Okay.
The notice says that your architectural rendering incorrectly shows that you have 6 bays. Has that been corrected?
That's just purely a design, and that was wishful thinking when we first, and I mentioned that to Nick, that we want to put a 6th door on there, but just to get started and all that, that's a lot of.
That won't happen.
So we're actually, and I can have that changed if anybody needs the rendering changed. I can have that door taken out and just go back to where we're at now with 5 bay doors.
Do you propose to have any service vehicles kept on the site?
No.
No. Okay, any further questions?
No. I just feel like there's still a lot that we're not seeing quite yet to give approval on the plan, to make it conditional. It seems like there's a lot of plans that still need to come back in front of us, like the landscape and the lighting. I'm excited you're moving in and gonna.
We are too.
Yeah,
It's gonna be pretty when it's done.
I believe that, but without seeing it in front of us, it's very hard to do a conditional approval on that, seeing as how there's so many.
So you want security lighting spec'd out, you actually want the type of landscaping, like the type of grass or if the type of bush, whatever's going on.
In Nick's, or the building department usually is pretty helpful with helping
Yeah.
you find the correct ordinance and what, like, we're looking to achieve-ish. But that would be very helpful for us, because everything looks great, and I take you at your word, but it's hard to kind of put it all. It maybe just update your orange stripe, while you're there, and get wife's approval, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's just my take.
I'm personally, I think you're spot on, and I think that's where we left it on the last site plan review. I'm motivated to come to some understanding so we could make some specific, if you said, these are the trees, these are the bushes, and we could make those, contingencies on this approval. I'd support it, but we've got two motions we've got to make or deny here. One's for the site plan and one's for the special use. So I don't know how other people feel.
I'll have this site plan modified.
Yeah, I just feel bad having you come back, right? Yeah.
It would
It
be
is
super
what it
quick.
is.
Yeah, because these are easily addressed things that aren't huge issues. And in terms of special use, it doesn't seem, at least to me, like it's an issue, seeing as how it's been a
It's
use
set up for it.
presently. And the neighboring properties kind of conform to that use as well, so I personally don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, strictly speaking, I mean, you could grant approval to the use and then have them come back with the final site plan. There's really, I mean, if you're okay with the use being in that location, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
I-
you can do kind of both, I guess,
Yeah. And not that I'm trying to overstep here, but someone will like convey these notes with him, so we're sure he's up to date on like what we're looking for at the next time, so we don't waste his time, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend postponing, like you did with the last one, and specifically point out the things that you guys are
Okay.
wanting to have identified.
We'll address everything.
Perfect.
quickly,
Sure.
In the next week or 10 days, but I'm sure we'll have everything
Okay, great.
ready to go.
So could we approve the?
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we approve the special use?
Yeah, and then recommend postpone the site plan contingent upon the landscaping plan and lighting?
I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
You do need to have a comment period for the special land use, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Good reminder.
That'll give you time to get the plans all together then, right? Yeah.
Oh, from this meeting.
Well, yeah, it was, we sent out the notices.
Oh, you did?
So we can do it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the chair of this will may open the public hearing.
I
Is that me?
That's you.
There's a
public?
crowd here.
I will now open the
I guess I
public.
could- Do I need to come to the mic?
Yes, please.
I'll make this fast. I am one of the 3 residents that are located right behind you. A little fun fact is this is my first house. I bought it in December of 2020, and then I discovered some of the issues. I mean, not his problem, but something I should have probably brought up to the city before this hearing with the drainage issue and what comes off that building. If you see from the side of the buildings, some of them don't have downspouts that push out, so it literally pushes water into the backyard. And I think, if I heard correctly, he mentioned grading, which may help that, but I don't know if it's on the side of the building that impacts me. I'm 813 Goodale Avenue. I probably should also mention that too. that's my biggest concern is I can't use my lawn, huge portion of my property at this point because of that building. And then to the point of the lights, I would be impacted by the lights if it was lit up really brightly. And then being a collision shop, you guys, I don't know the history of that building besides 2.5 years I've been here. But noise, there's gills and they're pretty good. It's not crazy, but again, I'll shoot my shot. I probably don't have too much of an opinion, but I am one of the 3 people impacted. So I thought I'd show up today. Thank you.
Thanks. And I don't know if
Thank
you
you.
spoke last time about, were you here, or did we speak at least about the last property or proposed?
Like, is this my first time as a tenant?
Oh, okay, because I know some of the neighbors did express concern about the drainage.
It's really bad.
Yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
and I'm
Is
glad
that
you're
the
addressing it
grading
with.
that you're mentioning?
We're doing all
Okay.
new gutters, all new downspouts, so it will go into the,
Because like,
yeah.
it would change my life. Honestly, it sounds so sad, but it's like so much of my property. It's so beautiful. And I've had the city call on me twice because of that, but I physically cannot mow my own lawn.
Right.
So it'd be
Yeah.
amazing for you to move in
We
there.
will-
I'm super
we will
excited
take
about
care
it, but
of
I
it.
am one of those poor little houses behind.
Now, are you to the east or are you to
I'm,
the
so there's
south?
Gills, there's one house, and there's me. And I think the 2 people beside me are actually renters, so I'm like the only one.
I can
That's
tell by-
probably why I'm the only one
I
here.
can tell by the way the lawns are mowed back there.
Oh my goodness, so it's me. The lawn grass is me. I think they called on that property too,
Yeah.
and they've been meeting back there, but you can see the issue itself.
Yep.
I appreciate having this
I've
conversation.
cleaned that alley out between the
Yes,
fence, you know.
we were the
I've been-
problem kids,
Yeah,
last
well,
summer.
we see
Not on
that none of the
purpose.
downspouts go into, I mean, the drains
Yeah.
are there and we're having that.
So that
all
is
scoped.
something in the plan.
Absolutely.
Then it feels great to me that I did want to come.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Seeing no one else in public, I will,
And we'll give you a deal on auto repair.
That's on record.
Should I step out? Sorry, it's my first time doing this.
You can do whatever you want.
seeing no one else in public, I will then close public discussion, and I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the special land use for 650 North Rochester without any further contingencies.
I'll second.
Will you state as an auto repair shop, just for
Ah,
clarity?
yes. Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the special land use as a auto body collision shop
Repair.
repair facility. Did I not get that right?
I don't know, that's just what Nick said. I was just trying to be exact.
Period?
For 650 North Rochester without contingency.
Period.
Period.
Do I have
Second.
support? I have support. I have motion and support. No further comment? Roll call, please.
And I just put approved as presented, is that okay?
Yeah.
Wait.
Without contingent?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Close enough.
All right. Mr. Harrow?
Yes.
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Thank you.
And now we need another motion for the actual site plan itself. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah.
I'll entertain a motion.
It's a motion to postpone.
Make a motion to postpone.
I think we
Do you-
had, there were a couple of issues, the landscaping plan and the lighting plan, right? Was there anything else that I'm forgetting?
I've got, like, I can go over the list that I just jotted if you guys want.
Do you want to make the motion then?
Yeah, go ahead,
She
Aaron.
can second it and
I can-
offer amendments to the motion.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
We don't have a motion right now.
You have supported it?
Oh, yes, I'll support and add two, please.
And amend.
He's postponing, she's supporting, now she's going to make changes or additions.
Yes. Okay. Can you please label the panel material? Show removal of barbed wire. Let's see. I believe the plans already showed removal, sorry, of sign. Can we see a lighting plan, a landscape plan, and, we don't need their signage, I guess. And then your proposed color changes, please.
To the orange stripe?
Well, just whatever is most up to date that you decide to do. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you have to change the orange, but if you're doing
My
it.
wife said I had to. so
Okay,
we don't
I'm
have
gonna
to.
listen to her.
Okay, do you accept those
I
additions
accept.
to your
I accept.
motion to postpone? So I have a motion, and I have support. Can I have roll call, please?
All right, just for clarity on the items that the applicant will be addressing, the landscaping plan, the screening of the lighting, an updated rendering of the orange panel color material, identify that the barbed wire will be removed as well as the pole sign.
So you said the orange, we'd like to see
The
just the material
the
listed
material.
and then the
Yeah.
color. Okay. As long as you understand whatever.
Yeah.
Just 8
Yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify, like, if you could label what panels the ephes is gonna be changed with, that's helpful, so we know. Is that still good?
Yeah, I think we
All right.
have everything encompassed as long as you guys agree.
Everybody happy with it?
Yep.
We're good.
Yes, label the loading zone too, please.
All right, and is that approved by who made the
Yes.
motion? Okay. Mr. Solomon?
Yes.
Mr. Harrow?
Yes.
Mr. Colburn?
Yes.
Mr. Cusero?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Scott? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that was, let me see, that was number 7. It's done. We'll move on to agenda item number 9 is discussion of the timeline for the master plan. Thank you.
Yes, timeline for master plan. That's me. So we talked about the scope last time. That didn't include the downtown plan scope, so I put that in there for your review this time, and then I put together a timeline that is in sort of a Gantt chart type form, where I'll throw it up on the screen while we're doing this. If I can get the meeting to come up. So,
Can I ask a clarifying question? Just, I was trying to go through on the downtown plan as well. So when you label an item, it says, meet with DDA. I assume that means this board is going to meet with the DDA. Is that
well, that's us meeting with the DDA, and then what I wanted the planning commission to do was assign couple of members to be the liaison to the DDA, so that as the DDA works on its downtown plan, there will be a couple of planning commission members who can, hopefully one of them can make it to every meeting, and then they can report back to the planning commission about what the DDA is working on. And then the planning commission also has direct input at that point from those members at those meetings.
yeah, sorry if I jumped ahead, but that was a
No, it's a
helpful
great,
clarification.
it's a great question, yeah.
Trying to figure out our involvement in that particular process, so thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. DDA, for those who are not familiar with its operating style, tends to meet in the morning because the DDA board is a group of business owners, and they tend to like to kind of get it out of the way and then go to work. So as you think about whether or not you might be able to be a liaison to that, just consider the time of day and whether or not you'd be available. And then also all of their open houses and things, those would be in the evening at the same time as the regular open houses for the overall master plan. But the actual meetings with the DDA board will be morning meetings.
You know what day and what time?
They tend to meet at 8:30. That's their typical meeting time. Yeah, third Wednesday is their typical meeting date.
Okay, great.
Third Wednesday morning, 8:30. And you don't have to assign those people tonight. You can do it at your next meeting. It's everybody can think about it and whether or not that's like a role that you think you could fill. And then you can put yourself forward at the next meeting. But I'd like to have 2 members of the planning commission, just so that if both of them can make it, that's awesome. But if one of them can't, we've got someone else who can be there, and you've still got a liaison presence.
Do we have to vote on it, or do we have to vote on it? For the mem-
Yeah, I think you would vote on who those 2 members would be. I think that you want to actually officially appoint those 2 people.
There's no quota or maximum, right?
As long as you don't have a quorum of the planning commission, yeah. So I would say the maximum would be 4. But yeah, we could certainly have more than 2. Yeah, absolutely. I want 2 at a minimum. But if we have 3, that's even better.
And you're looking for someone who would be, from what I recall, the master plan update is going to be about a 12 to 18-month process, so someone that's going to be committed to the third Wednesday.
The
for-
DDA process is shorter than that because
Okay.
that's a smaller plan. So it would most likely be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's about a 7, 8 month process.
7 or 8 months, okay.
Do I hear any volunteers this evening?
I would.
I volunteer.
Okay, so we
Yeah,
got
2.
we got 2 already. That's great.
Do we want to swear them in right away so they don't back out?
I'm completely fine with that, and if we want to add a 3rd one later, that's fine too. Yeah, I think that works.
I
Motion?
try to attend the meetings when I can, but they're too early in the morning for my taste.
Yeah, I would love to be a sub or rotate in when possible. I just, with my work schedule, wouldn't be able to make every one, so.
I can be a YouTube liaison. I watch their YouTubes.
They used to meet at 4:30 in the afternoon. I would attend those because convenient.
So should we make a motion then? You said we do a motion to approve, like to appoint these 2 as our liaisons?
Yes, I think that would be good. That way, that makes it official. You know, you've appointed them as your liaison for the purposes of completing the downtown master plan.
Okay. Sure, I'll make a motion to appoint, I forget your last name though. I'm sorry, Richard Scott and Laurent Nouchard as our DDA liaison. Do I need to give a term or just for the purposes of the DDA master plan update?
Yeah, of completing the DDA master plan update, yeah.
Motion,
Second.
support. Roll call, please.
Oops. Gotta get you a second mic.
Yeah. Mr. Colbert.
Yes.
Mr. Cusero.
Yes.
Mr. Nushai.
Yes.
Ms. Redmond.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
Mr. Solomon. And Mr. Harrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping forward, both of you. Very much appreciate that. One of the other things I wanted to do tonight, before we move on with the discussion, is I wanted to introduce Andy. This is Andy Amat from my office. He's going to be helping with the master plan. And, well, you already know him from the ZBA, because Andy handles the ZBA meetings, so he's familiar with Clausen already. But yes, he's going to be helping out, and you will see him a lot during this process, so.
Great.
Welcome.
Well,
Andy's really good. He's exceptionally detail-oriented and just helps us guide us through on ZBA, so we're lucky to have him here.
Yes, I like having Andy too, for the very same reason. Plus, he's a great guy. But yes, I agree. He is spectacularly detail-oriented. So, yeah, I mean, what you see here is really kind of where everything is supposed to fall in the process. And you can kind of get a sense of like which modules we'll be working on at the same time. We're trying not to cram too many into too small a space so that we can really give each one the focus that it needs. You know, really what we're trying to do, you see a lot of O's here, OH, for open house at the end of each process. And the idea is, okay, we get through all this stuff. We're doing some input gathering up front. We get through all the drafting, then we're putting it in front of people and saying, tell us what you think. And we're doing that online, and we're doing it in person, so we're giving people multiple ways to do that. It is not prepared yet, but it will be by our next meeting. We have a public engagement platform called Social Pinpoint that we're using. And what that does is it allows us to set up a website for the master plan, and we can put surveys and information about the plan and all kinds of other stuff on this website. It's very easy for people to interface with. And that gives people a way of just constantly checking in. And the other thing that, I really want to do, and I'm working on a plan for this, is a lot of master plan processes just sort of launch. And they get started, and they're going, and there's like a survey, and then there's other stuff. I really want to have like a grand opening type launch where we're really pushing out that we're doing this. This website will help with that because it gives people a place that we can constantly point to. We can put a QR code on everything we do so people can just point their phone at it and go straight to the master plan website. We're really kind of trying to change our philosophy about how we start a master plan process. Because, the planning profession has done this the same way for like 70 years. You do a master plan, we just get started and we go, and then we ask people what they think, in a survey or something. And I just think that in order to create more of an environment of engagement, we need to do a bigger opening push to get people involved, get their attention right up front. And that way, it's not just a survey link that comes out, it's a survey link that's attached to something they're already aware of and they're already thinking about on some level, even if they saw it and said, oh, master plan, yeah, whatever, okay. Then when they get the link, it's connected to something. It's a second impression or a third impression rather than a first impression. Oh, I'm getting a link and I'm being asked to do a survey. What's this all about? They might already know what it's all about. And this is their opportunity to give us some input.
Hey, Joe, can I ask a question on that point? I like that. Have we ever, or you ever, in the history of whoever, connected it to some type of event, or like the Clausen Fest and having even like a table there or something like that?
That's one of our ideas, was to have a table at that, and there's a couple DDA events as well.
And even I know it's too late now, but the library, I mean, what a great way to engage
Right.
a lot of seniors who feel like their input is not always there. I'm not trying to make generalizations, but you know what I mean. Like just different community events that already exist that we can tap into.
Yeah, exactly. We do want to do that. And one of the things that we can pair with this website is kind of a mobile display that has the same information with it, so you can set it up at an event. And perhaps we could have a volunteer planning commissioner or something standing with it,
I would love that, yeah.
And that gets it kind of out into the community. Because the other thing that I think is very common in master plans is that everything happens at City Hall. All the open houses are at City Hall. Everything's right here. And people hate going to City Hall. That's where they go to drop off their tax bill and complain about their flooding. Getting it out of City Hall, I think, is important. Mm-hmm. And I would even like to do ultimately a couple of the open houses, if possible, outside of City Hall as well, and we'd have to discuss where that might be. But I think that, yes, some of it can occur at City Hall. It's a practical place to do it because it's ours. But getting some of it out of City Hall and into the community helps people connect to the process a lot more, because people just generally don't like going to City Hall if they don't have to.
Well, and we don't, also, to your point, we also don't have to recruit everybody to show up. They might already be showing up and just even there's certain events at the park in the summer where they'll have big blow-up things, and just setting up a little picnic table under the gazebo is just a great way to oh, hey, you're here. We're updating our master plan? It's a way to engage a lot of people without having to do the work of the outreach, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's good for, awareness campaigns and things like that. But for specific open houses, we should look at, which module we're in and trying to tie it. So if we're talking about the school district, we should probably be at one of the schools, right?
Yeah, exactly. It makes perfect sense.
So that you can get that audience that has the most opinions, hopefully.
That's great, too.
Yeah, exactly. That's the exact thinking behind it. And And I just, I want to try to be as creative as possible about doing the outreach. And just because people got a lot on their plates. And, being asked to do yet another survey, being asked to go to yet another thing, give up yet another evening of your life, it's a lot. And, we have to give people a lot of ways to interact for that reason. If you can just sit there doing it on your phone while you're waiting for your kid's piano lesson to be over, well, that's great. That's a survey that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise. But, if you really want to come in, or maybe you're not very internet savvy or something, you want to come here for an open house, that's also available to you. I know that it's just so hard to get, really strong engagement today. So,
So you're saying, not to interrupt, sorry, there's the ability for them to come into City Hall and take like an electronic survey here, like a push survey
we
here?
could probably set that up.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that'd be great too,
Yeah, they could.
Wherever you have an engaged audience, right? Somebody that's already here.
Sure,
Makes a lot of
yeah,
sense.
exactly,
Or even
yeah.
at the schools, or something.
Yeah.
Library is a good.
QR codes, we can have them on all the.
Just when everyone is waiting in a room or somewhere, it makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. That's how, yeah.
Well, you can,
I got 3 minutes to go.
yeah.
You can send out a thing with the tax bills or something that has the QR code on it too, So there's lots of different ways that we can reach wide audiences. But we found that even over the last 5 years, it's gotten so much harder than it was just 5 years ago to get people engaged. So we've just got to think outside the box and try to do as much as we can to get that engagement. And, some of the efforts that we make will fail. There's no question about it. Sometimes it's just not going to work.
Yeah, if you try it out there on the streets, you're going to end up dealing with one or two people having the same discussion again and again and again.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get a format here where you can get a group of people at one time, you only have to go through your program once, which we did it here, 10 years ago when we had all the signage here in the lobby.
Yep.
And I think it's really important, I'm sure you'll do this, right, but the awareness of what is a master plan. And
Exactly,
what
yeah.
we actually can control and can't control, and it's a guide, right?
Right.
But a lot of that upfront, knowledge is important for the average person. I don't think anybody knows. I mean, I didn't know before I came on board
Sure.
8 months ago, so
Yeah,
I can't expect the average citizen.
People don't know that a master plan exists if they don't know what it is, and they don't know what it does either. People don't understand. Okay, we have a zoning ordinance, and it's rooted in a master plan. So understanding the continuum of the planning with the ordinances that we have, that's all very important. We've developed a lot of educational documents over the last year to do that, and I'm looking to refine some of those. And
Nick, can you make a TikTok or something?
Get
to the masses.
It's a 9:45, and you put a lot of work into this, and it's a very self-explanatory. So I follow through it very completely. What do we need to accomplish today? We've got 2 volunteers to sit on
that was really the
DDA.
one thing we needed to accomplish tonight. And then as far as, the kickoff, we're doing the kickoff in June. We're really going to get
It's confirmed dates,
rolling.
June 23rd.
Yeah, June 2023. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
yeah. That makes more sense.
There's not a specific date.
So there's no particular dates yet.
Yeah, so I think that would be an ambition between now and our next meeting is to actually try to get some dates in there. I'd like to try to cut at least 3 weeks out of this schedule, just because I predict that towards the end of it, it's going to be a lot in a short period of time. And I think we can, if we discipline ourselves to some specificity on what the action items are. My immediate feedback is the critical big rock, as the charter commissioners would use, I think, is the infrastructure conversation, and how is that handled? Who's invited to that table? Who does what? Who's the inform? Who's the consult? Who's the decision maker? I guess.
Can you clarify what you're saying there? I don't know. You said the Charter Commission can use that?
Sorry, that was a lot to unpack. Okay, never mind the Charter Commission
Okay.
whatsoever.
I was
That was a bad reference, I apologize. For me, one of the big things in the master plan is the infrastructure. So
Okay.
where does the city as a whole agree the future lies for our infrastructure? Maybe it's no change at all, maybe it's a significant change to roads and sewers and water and whatnot. A lot of that input comes from DPW, a lot of that input comes from past, work done by AEW. And so where does that get reviewed? How does it get reviewed? Who's invited to that? It's unclear exactly how it would go, but it's clearly going to happen. If we specify it a little bit better, we might be more efficient in getting through that hurdle. So that was my only feedback on that. And to take 3 weeks as just a pure brunt force, trying to get it done quicker and with more focus perhaps on any waste of time. So, but I'm excited about it. I'm really, I feel like there's some duplicity between our master plan, DDA's master plan, the sustainability plan. I wish there was some way that those could all be like at least maybe one plan, or maybe there's a master plan, no pun intended, and then a child, supporting that, or it's a component of it. But like, I would hate for someone to get a survey for the master plan, and then 3 weeks later they get a survey for the DDA plan, and then 3 weeks later that they get a survay for the
It all has to be
sustainability plan.
coordinated, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll tucker people out and we'll annoy them in the process if we do it that way. So this is all I had. Thank you.
I think that's a fair point. Were you looking for more information on these modules to be built out? Because I know like what we did in the sustainability plan was, what data is available today, who are the resources that would be included. I don't know if that's something that we plan on doing ahead of the official kickoff, or what the kind of next steps are in that regard, to how to make them, as efficient as possible, and what data and information should we look at ahead of time in terms of planning for it, so we can have a constructive conversation.
I think there's a couple components to that. One is there's like general data about the city, like a demographic update and things like that. So that's something that we all have to be aware of in terms of every module that we're looking at. But then for each module, there will be kind of a subset of the items that you were just talking about, and I think that would be our prep work for each module.
Okay.
Is that when we launch each module, we've got that little bundle of information that we're putting in front of you at the beginning of the module, and then we get through the module from there.
Okay. So in a similar fashion, because I saw that we would take one meeting out of the month for this work, we would get a similar packet to digest information that's available today, so we can have a constructive conversation during those first meetings. That's the plan, kind of.
Right,
how to
yeah.
coordinate.
And we might use that second meeting, kind of on an as-needed basis, maybe to review, concepts or something like that. And it's all going to be dependent on what else we have on the agenda. But the idea is, well, we've got this 2-meeting structure. Let's try to use the meetings in a considered way. That first meeting, really focus in on the master plan, and the second meeting, we can move all of our site plans and things to that second meeting and try not to tangle them up too much. Make sure that we're giving the amount of time that we need to the master plan.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You got your 2 volunteers. You want to go any further?
No, I didn't have anything else that we needed to discuss tonight. Just, if anybody's got any more questions, and if a question occurs to you after the meeting is over, you
So
have Nick's contact information, and we can address that question then.
The next DDA meeting will be the 21st, right, of June? Third
Yes.
Third Wednesday?
Yes.
8:30?
Yep.
Okay. So we will meet before then.
We will meet before then, yep.
So, okay.
Okay, shall we move on to other business? Any other business?
Well, I have one thing, and it's just, we canceled our last meeting without, any of us really saying we should cancel it. And part of the reason I'm sensitive to it is because of us ending meetings at 10 o'clock at night. I would rather meet for an hour than you know, skip a meeting and then go till 10 o'clock or later and just kind of be rushed. So I don't know. I just feel like it's an opportunity for feedback to the administration. Like if it's possible to not cancel meetings and, you know, distribute some of the workload over it in the future, it would be great. From what I understood from Nick, he has no plans to cancel meetings.
And as you guys can tell, I think you guys know that there's a loaded schedule, and I think that's kind of why we made that decision. Is both those site plans weren't ready. I mean, you guys saw how it went tonight. I mean, they probably should have taken some more time to review them anyway, but we're here now, and you know, Giffords was still working on that chart, and so you know, without any true real business to talk about, we didn't want to take up an evening of you guys knowing that this next year and a half is going to be, you know, both meetings a month and hopefully some more time out of your day. So that's why that decision was made.
I have a couple things to bring up for other business. I don't know if this is to Joe or to Nick, but just for reference, I was, I don't print out all 70 pages or however many pages of the packet, but I was going to reference a file from an old site plan, and I realized I can't see it anymore. Is there something that I'm missing in terms of, like, if I wanted to see the Roth plan and I go back to view it, is there a way that we're able to still have access to those site plans?
So I imagine you were going back at a former packet from a year ago, and and Giffords Webster had that share file link. I've tried to do it too, and sometimes those share files expire for whatever reason. But we do have digital plans on file in the building department. So if anyone has any questions on plans that we've had, 6 months ago or 6 years ago, we should have. We will have a copy of them.
So I can just email you if I'm looking to get a record of an
Absolutely.
old plan. Okay. Thank you, Nick. And then I was curious, elephant in the room, Mr. Watson has not been here since December, wondering if there's been any, touch made to him, or if
He has resigned.
he has resigned. Okay. Maybe I missed the meeting where that was
No,
read.
he notified me as chair, and he notified the mayor, which is the responsibility when you resign.
That's how it's written in the bylaws.
Yeah, but I just thought the commission would know that as a whole after that point.
Yeah, I mean, I found out last week. I didn't mention in the roll call, but so there is one vacancy on the
And so to the public out there, we have an open seat up here if somebody else wants to come up here and join it.
That's good to know. All right.
And then, by the way, the council's been reviewing the way residents get appointed to boards and commissions, and so that determination should hopefully be coming from the city council. I don't want to put a time frame on it, but I'm anticipating sometime over the next month or so.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do we have a planner's report?
I don't have anything else tonight. The master plan timeline was not.
Right, no planners reports. Staff report and training opportunities. I think we had some of that in our agenda.
All right, and before I just go on the staff report, I do just want to touch on Giffords real quick, because they won't share this, and so just to give them some props is, this obviously is not their first master plan. They've done plenty of them. They do great work. They're working in Farmington Hills right now, which is a significantly large city, and they try new strategies out, and so they've had a lot of time to see how people are engaging post-COVID after a huge event. People change how they've interacted with events, the community, and so I think that they'll have a lot of really good ideas to get more public engagement that we've gotten over the last couple months on events, and so I'm looking forward to working with them, as I hope you guys all are too. And then when it comes to the staff report, I did provide a 2-page document for you guys to look at, and then as well on the agenda, you'll see that there were items A and B, and so Commissioner Harrell referenced it earlier that about that meeting that was canceled. There was a request made to have 2 items on the agenda, but at that time it didn't fall through, and one commissioner technically does not have the authority to ask for an agenda item, but out of courtesy for him, I did want to have them identified on the agenda, which are the noticing requirements and the certificates of occupancy. And so I guess if anyone wants to talk on those, they can, but I feel like we've had some decent discussion on them, on the current ordinances and what we allow as a city to do and how we operate. And so, happy to answer any questions.
We're 5 minutes short of 10, so I think it'd be a good time now to take a roll call. Let's extend the timing. Let's extend it for half an hour. We might not need all that time, but I think half an hour would be good.
Isn't this our last, this is our last thing, right? I have,
But there might be some discussion on these.
oh, okay.
I mean, as a counter to that, I would just say, can we just put this on next agenda?
I'd rather deal with it right now. If you want to give us 15 minutes? And I'm saying, we're not going to take that long. I don't want to run the clock out right now.
I agree, I mean, yeah.
15 minutes, 20 minutes?
I'll give you 5.
I have 5. Do I hear 10?
Maybe just make it till 10:10.
Okay.
That'll give 15 minutes from now.
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting to 10:05.
Support. I can support that.
Okay.
All right.
I don't think we need much more time than that. I got second, so I can discuss, but like, I don't think we need much.
I'm just
It's
trying-
pretty cut and dry.
Just trying to play with the rules.
Okay.
If you run out, you're going to have to extend it again.
All right.
Okay.
Roll call?
All right, Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mr. Cusero?
Yes.
Mr. Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Mr. Scott? And Mr. Solomon?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I requested these 2 items. I didn't think I'd have 5 minutes
You get
graciously
10.
provided me.
10.
Oh, you're right, 10, sorry.
Only
So
10.
10's wonderful, thank you. And thank you for the courtesy of having it on the agenda, I guess. I think we are all in agreement that it was somewhat disgraceful for the residents who live next to that apartment complex to not get any notice that that was happening. And
Well, what do you mean?
by ordinance, we weren't required to send them a notification that we were having a site plan review for that site, is what I understood. None of them received a letter that says, hey, you better show up at City Hall on Tuesday because they're talking about demolishing the house you live in. That didn't happen, or that you were living next to it. I understand it is an ordinance in other municipalities, and it could be one in ours if we had one, but we don't have one. So I've heard, multiple residents say that's a good thing. We would like that. I haven't heard anybody say, no, I absolutely don't want to know if something is happening next door to me of that magnitude. I've not heard anybody say that. I've heard administrators talk about how, well, if you do that, it could make for some dicey meetings and you might get some feedback you don't want and it might complicate things, but a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, I think that's a fairly straightforward argument to make, that we should at least make that notice possible. There is no such ordinance, so far as I know. So what would it take to make it so?
Well, I guess there's a couple questions there. So the way the zoning ordinances are written is so you have certain districts set up, they have permitted uses and uses that aren't, special land uses, et cetera. So permitted uses are ones that we've approved no matter what. If you want to come open a restaurant in X place, you can do that. If you want to, as long as the ordinance allows it to at that point. And so that's decided via the master plan. It's written the ordinance that way to identify uses that we find accessible in certain areas in our municipality. And so having that out there is it's already allowed to happen at there. Is it currently operating there? No. Where do you stop it though? So whenever a use change and it's abuts residential and it's permitted, so you've got let's just say like a Play It Again Sports, and they're going to turn it into a restaurant. Do they have to notify all the residences within 300 feet if it's a permitted use? And that's just a question for you guys to think about.
Well, part of my reason for making it short is because I don't think we have the ability to do that. We don't write ordinance. That's more of a city council kind of thing, at least my understanding. But I don't, amending the ordinance to include that.
Where do you think all the ordinances came from?
City council.
Not the planning commission?
Of course not.
The mayor came up with the idea to have a zoning such and such and not the other?
Ordinances come from city council. Talking about zoning. Zoning and city council and ordinances are two different things.
Okay, a generic question, who makes ordinances, period?
City council.
Laws? Yeah, they approve them. Can we say that more clearly? They approve them.
So does the planning commission have the ability to take an ordinance to city council,
We can recommend.
recommended?
For zoning.
Recommend a zoning ordinance.
Uh-huh,
Nothing else.
okay.
Right, and at that same time, the planning commission doesn't technically have spending authority, so you can't identify, X to do X to work on X.
Sure. So it's news to me, I guess, and thank you for clarifying me, that the only thing we can do is draw a map. Is that how I understand it? Oh,
Why do you take things so literal? I mean, that's not what any one of us said.
okay.
And then you said it was
I mean, no-
disgraceful that we didn't send letters out. I mean, we didn't do anything to.
Slow down. So sorry for anything offensive, and no offense meant. Legitimately, just trying to clarify. So what I thought coming into this meeting, that is if we came up with an ordinance that made sense for the city, it was appropriate to bring it up here, to deliberate on it, and ultimately come up with something that was worth motioning to be reviewed at council for their approval. What you said to me, Mr. Najai, is that only as it pertains to zoning ordinances.
That's correct.
So what I repeated to you to try to clarify that is that the zoning is a map. Some districts, some zones are approved for residential use, some for business, some for a little of both, what have you. So are you saying that allocation based on input from master plan discussions and so forth is the extent of the purview of the planning commission?
I cannot make sense of your statement as uttered, but I know that it is not the appropriate time at other business to deliberate or to train, to have a training exercise as far as your role in the planning commission. But your role as planning commission is to, when appropriate, to recommend a zoning ordinance, something that deals with zoning specifically. That's not what we're talking about. To the extent that we're beyond that, I would recommend moving on to the next item.
Okay.
So we can't, I'm sorry, can I just ask a question? So we can't, can you just answer? Are we allowed to make a recommendation that we should notify neighbors when there's?
Zoning ordinance.
Okay, so we can't make that recommendation, okay.
Well, okay. So we got on that thread, I guess, just because of your comment. Like, I didn't think we could do that. That's why I thought it was 5 minutes is enough. So,
Yeah.
okay. It's more to me than that. And the exact example I'm talking about is that from a resident's perspective, the people living on that block, and this is beyond them, but the people living on that block were greatly affected by this proposal that was basically clothed in variances. So it wasn't as straightforward, it's approved for this use exactly as described. It wasn't. And had they not come here and expressed their views, we might not be able to look at things in a perspective that makes our review of it appropriate. And so again, there's nothing currently in ordinances, regardless of their nature, to protect those residents from this surprise. And I think that's wrong. I guess I'm not getting any specific legal basis for it, but I'd like to solicit that at a different time. I'm not sensing that I'm allowed from you, Nick, to propose that as an agenda item. And I've been encouraged by the city attorney to move on to another topic. So I will do that. But
We might need to extend a little bit.
May I
later.
just clarify one item that you made? So when pending the approval of the site plan by the planning commission, they go to the ZBA, notices go out. So it's not closed, as you alluded to.
to those residents living nearby?
They would get a notice of the variance request for all three of those items to go to the zoning board of appeals meetings.
Notice in what form?
A letter to the property.
So they did get a letter.
They will when they.
For the
will,
variance.
you're saying, for the variance.
When the zoning board of appeals reviews it, yes.
Okay, so we're partway there. You want to move on?
Should
We're
we
running out of time,
extend
so you wanna
another-
Move on to B?
5 minutes?
Shift to
Or
extend
10
5 minutes. Move to,
Sorry, I should have given you longer than 5. Extend the meeting to 10:05, or 10:10, sorry. I make a motion.
Second.
10:10?
Yes, I mean, do you think you'll need more than 5 minutes for the TCO?
No, I think we're fine. I'll go with 10:10, okay. You want to move on to B?
Do we have to vote on that, the extension?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yay.
Aye.
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 all right. So again, we've kind of talked about certificates of occupancy a handful of times. We've shared the ordinance and how it's written and how both entities are to interact and how you guys approve site plans. They go through, complete their site plan, the city administration gives them a C of O or TCO pending, work on the site plan. Obviously, the history has the planning commission issuing TCOs, and there's been reasons why that has gone back to the administration. It's been shared to the planning commission, and that's the background of where we stand.
Will we still get updates from you as to when they're issued?
Absolutely, and I think I've been doing that in the staff report, and, if there are questions on each of those properties, I think I've done I've really tried to encourage you guys to reach out outside of the Tuesday meetings, and so if you do have questions on anything, please feel free to reach out, call, email, text me, I'm always available.
Okay.
Yeah, my question was specifically on the specific legal basis for the assignment of TCOs to the building department, and what ordinance in our charter specifies that, as well as what state law may do so. And we actually had a chance to talk outside this meeting with the city attorney, and he referenced, I think, the building code.
Yeah, and our building official is the person who signs off on them, and he is a certified building official through the state of Michigan who has authority to issue TCOs and CFOs.
Yeah, so, no offense, but just the statements that you make, would be so much more powerful if you could, show those specific laws and that language so that it would be self-explanatory and I wasn't forced to just take your word for it. Not that I don't trust you, it's not self-explanatory, and the background of it is not there. So if you're saying I have no obligation to educate you on this, that's a fair statement. I'll go and do what I have to do to educate myself through some other means, but it would be very courteous for you to share that with us so that we would understand exactly what it is, because there was a grievance here. And, we're treating some people differently than we treat other people. I agree, you're doing a fantastic job. And as of late, we see in your report outs what TCOs are out there, but it wasn't always that way. They just sort of lived out there. They were approved. We never found out about it. If there was things about our ordinances that required updating to be more appropriate, that didn't put so many businesses in loopholes of TCOs, into perpetuity, we would never know that. Because we have no insight on the TCOs. You're helping with that now. I would use the word as a courtesy. But if it's an obligation by law, I don't see how I would know that, because I've not been shared that.
So on page 2 of the staff report, it does say in our ordinances that the building department shall provide a summary of each temporary certificate of occupancy to the planning commission at the next meeting after issuance.
Yeah, I get that. Currently so.
Right, and that's the language that I've been following when I provide you guys an update.
Yeah. So, but empowered by state law is what I.
Yeah, and I can definitely do that.
That would be great. So the state law, whatever it is, if you could share that language, would be wonderful. Thank you. No further comment.
No further?
You're early.
Shall we move on to legal update?
Very briefly, Mr. Chair.
You can take it from your chair if you would prefer.
Good, you only got 2 minutes.
Very briefly, I think I agree with Mr. Hera in concept. I think training would be appropriate, and it would be helpful. So I think Nick and I and Joe will work to make that available to you, to anybody that wishes to engage. I think it's important. Additionally, I think because it became relevant from the first site plan review, there's a case that was handled by the Supreme Court. An order came down. It was, issued recently, even though the decision was made in 2022, in the middle of the year, about what it means to be an aggrieved party who can challenge a zoning ordinance. It used to be where only a party, pursuant to state law, only a party who was directly involved could file a lawsuit to basically to ensure that their rights were protected in a zoning litigation, basically. The Supreme Court set aside that rule, came up with a new definition of what a aggrieved party means, and in thinking and sitting here and listening to the site plan review and to all the neighbors who came up and spoke, all those individuals now have this new right, which is they can challenge a zoning decision of a board like this. They can challenge a municipality. It was a case that came where neighbors challenged Saugatuck. There's some requirements, obviously, you have to show damages and things of that nature, but it's a new right and it's an important right, and I just wanted to let you know that that's out there. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
on that? Sorry, I don't want to be over.
We're looking.
They can challenge you, sorry, I feel pressure. They can challenge it even though it's written in, even if you follow it as ordinanced, as per zoning ordinance, they can challenge?
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting,
Yeah,
okay.
very.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion, got a second?
Did you second before I motioned?
Someone's ready to get out of here. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond? Mr. Nushai?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. Colber? Mr. Hara?
Yes.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
It is hot. I'm warm.
It's a classic negotiation technique.
Pardon me?
Turn up the heat.
Yeah.
Sweat us out.
Turn the clock out.